Earth have been fundamentally violated by egregious harms to our communities and ecosystems due to the fossil fuel extraction and infrastructure, and by a myriad of dangerous false solutions being proposed for climate mitigation. Your arguments, and speaking now to all the incredible presenters, have made it clear that the consequence of the current path we are on is leading to irreversible and fatal changes to the very web of life. Because of this and the destructive pressure of an extractive economy and a worldview based on supremacy, racism, patriarchy, and colonization, we can see that there are grave violations of Mother Earth's rights that are not only destroying animals, forests, rivers, oceans, and the very atmosphere that we're trying to breathe, but are bringing into question the very existence of the human species, with Indigenous, Black, and Brown, and frontline communities already being impacted first and worst by all these forces. The fossil fuel industry, our governance structures, and corporate institutions must be held accountable for these violations against nature. I also want to enter into the record a new report from WECAN that we just released this month that addresses disproportionate gender and race-specific health and safety impacts, as well as human Indigenous rights violations due to the fossil fuel extraction. Particularly, this report applies to the United States and Canada, but it could be applied anywhere. And I think it has come out in these reports that we cannot leave out environmental racism and colonization from the front and center of this conversation. So this is a report, you can find it online on our website. This includes rising cancer rates, miscarriages, and escalating violence for women in what are known as sacrifice zones. The report includes research and studies from cases presented today from MVP, from Cancer Alley, Louisiana, and more. Today, as we hold our International Rights of Nature Tribunal, governments, as I mentioned earlier this morning, are meeting in New York for the Summit of the Future. And as we talked about earlier, at first, fossil fuels were not even in the original outline of the pact. It is there now, and there has been an interesting outcome. I don't want to get into that today, but the pact has been signed. And so I think that that push by civil society that we talked about earlier today made a big difference, which means we have to keep pushing. We also know that the COP29 presidency has put out their agenda for COP29, and fossil fuel phase out is not on it. So this is why we're meeting here. We have got to collect ourselves together. In response to these, what governments are doing, it really highlights it again why we, the people, and our movements for climate justice and ending fossil fuels are so vitally important. While many world leaders hold on to the notion that we can postpone reductions in fossil fuels, nature is clearly demonstrating to us that she's not waiting, and that the Earth's natural laws can't be manipulated, purchased, compromised, or ignored. Thousands of people have already lost their lives this year in climate disruption events and from fossil fuel-related pollution. And let's be clear that the International Energy Agency, IPCC reports have stated that to keep within the 1.5C guardrail outlined in the Paris Agreement, there can be no more fossil fuel expansion. I don't know how much louder we need to say it, how many more dead bodies and dead communities and dead ecosystems do we need to have so that we can hear loud and clear, no more fossil fuels. From the presentations today and cases in previous tribunals, we can see that false solutions such as geoengineering, there was a great presentation today on that, carbon capture and storage, carbon offsets and markets, climate smart agriculture, only are furthering the violations to Mother Earth's rights. These are in the old system, and we need a new system, so we can't go down the road of these false solutions. As climate disruption and environmental degradation increases globally, it could not be more important to highlight that exploitation and extractivism is a result of patriarchal societies, colonization, racism, and neoliberal capitalism, which are all based upon the same systems and ideologies of power over and exploitation of women, Indigenous peoples, people of color, and the land. It's clear that the global community needs to address these systems of oppression in an intersectional manner and to move towards justice and real solutions, and Rights of Nature can offer a vital path forward in this effort. I think that's what's really exciting about the Rights of Nature movement and the cases that are already being won, is it's big enough to hold this what many scholars are calling a polycrisis, of many crises piled upon one on the other. We don't want the commodification of the Mother Earth or the sky. Our earth and atmosphere are not for sale. We don't want our sacred earth, water, air, and forest on the marketplace. Instead, we want to see pollution stopped at the source, and for governments, corporate actors, and all of us to live with respect and reciprocity with Mother Earth. When we think about the rights of nature, we have to ask, do we have the right to sell and destroy something that belongs to everyone and should be a shared commons? And does it make any sense to try to protect nature and heal our damaged ecosystems by furthering subjecting nature to an economic and legal system that caused the damage in the first place? It just doesn't make any sense. I've been deeply moved by the Tribunal and all the case presenters we have heard from today. Our Mother Earth is calling out to us, and our hearts are literally breaking. She's letting us know that we are on a path of great devastation. Today, our hearts also break for our fallen sisters and brothers, defenders of the land that we heard about today, whose stories we have heard through the Tribunal, but throughout the year. The fact that people are putting their bodies on the line, dying for their ecosystems to live, is insane. It's just absolutely insane that we're fighting our own governments and our own financial institutions to live. And while it's true the Earth will live on and survive even though we may not, it's tragic to think that our mark as a species on this beautiful planet will be one of destruction and violence instead of beauty-making, dignity, creativity, imagination, and harmony, which is also part of who we are. The presentations today make it clear that our legal and economic frameworks are at war with the sacred web of life, and clearly we need an entirely different legal configuration that recognizes the Earth's living systems are not the enslaved property of humans for exploitation.